Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another exciting episode of the best darn show on the internet. The Over Sharon Show. At least I didn't mess that part up. We have a guest today. We're very excited about it. Before we get into that, though, I'm going to read today's quote, and then Sharon will pull a card for us. The lovely Sharon. Today's quote is: "Hide others' faults so that others may hide your faults." And that's by Rumi, allegedly. All these Rumi quotes lately.
Yeah, that's a nice quote. I like that. You don't want to publish someone's misfortunes or their faults or whatever.
I would definitely agree on the misfortunes aspect. But the faults, it's like, okay, are you doing something that's overtly harmful to your family and your community, and everyone's just kind of staying silent about it? Because if so, kind of need to call that person out.
Yes. Yeah, I totally agree. The way I look at this quote would be more an internal thing where I'm trying to not take things personally. But I hear what you're saying. That's why truth and wisdom is so dangerous, right? It's because if people hear the wrong thing and then they're just like, whoa, and they go off on it. Yeah, but we talk about that a lot on the show. But yeah, no, that's a very, very, very valid point to remember. I was thinking that too. Like if somebody does something or is going to do something to you, it's probably safe to announce that. Something bad anyway.
All right, here I go.
Here we go.
7 of Swords, right?
Ooh, fancy. See if we could. Oh. There we go. Okay, 7 of Swords. Ooh, and what deck is that?
The Morgan Greer.
Oh, I like how those other 5 swords are just like shadows almost.
Yeah.
Almost like he's laboring them as well. Like he's having to bear the weight of those 5.
And it looks like those other 2 are stuck in his leg, maybe sticking him to the ground. It's like maybe it could represent a blind spot, some beliefs that you have that you're not aware of that are holding you back,
Yeah, so swords are air, right? So they represent like mental plane thoughts, ideas.
Yep.
Cool. It's not a card I pull very often at all. So not super familiar with it.
Yeah, good card. Well, 7's a good number anyway, so but
indeed it is. But we have a guest today, a returning guest, Brother Nature Bear, James. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me back.
Yeah, and today we're just going to chit chat. We're going to talk about, reflecting back on the year and what a year is, maybe what it means. When should we count it a year? That sort of thing.
Yeah, so just jumping off from that, we were talking about reflecting on the year. And I think that we should create time in each day for reflection. I actually wrote myself a note for this new year to make time, to make extra time, like go to bed a little bit earlier and to rise a little bit sooner, to have more time to reflect with gratitude. Because some days, some days can feel like a grind, especially whenever you're in the heat of the year. In the spring, everything's starting to build. In the summer, you might be very deep into your projects, and then in fall, you're like trying to finish up projects, and you're starting to, and you're following the seasons. You're starting to find that things are starting to slow down, and that you're starting to turn more inwardly. And it's important to give ourselves time to reflect each day, but then also at the end of the year to have a time of reflection. And this is more like the daily is like a self-assessment, and then the yearly is like a life assessment. Like, is this still the path that I'm like, am I going this path because this is what I'm choosing to do? And am I joyful in it? Because each day is a gift, but it depends on where our head is turned and what perspective we're seeing each day in, which is why I think giving yourself the time before your mind really gets going to start practicing gratitude, even if you aren't naturally a grateful person, but to practice it, just to consciously think about those things that you are grateful for, whether it's your family, whether it's your animals, whether it's your career or your life. Just find some aspects that you can return to each morning as a practice. That way you get the momentum. Once you start building that momentum of gratitude, it starts to overflow into other parts of your life. And so reflecting on the year with that same lesson in mind, that you've practiced every day. Okay, I'm grateful for these things. These things were challenging, and how would I move forward differently? Or do I need to make an abrupt change with my life and my standing so that I can be where I have projected myself in my mind, but clearly in my physical life, I'm not there. It's an ideal that I'm going towards. And then you have this whole year to reflect on, did you move any closer to that ideal? And that's what a lot of these these messiah characters in different belief systems are to embody, is a higher ideal than just our quarrelsome natures that people can have amongst themselves. Is that you're going to rise above that because you're striving towards some sort of self-improvement and self-discovery, as well as in your community. Because if you have the capacity to do so, then you should extend yourself back into your community. Some folks, I don't think, have the capacity yet because they haven't learned how to harness their own energy, to like get it under control, haven't learned to control their own energies enough yet to be of service to their communities. And so the best service that they could give to their community is to work on themselves. And so that's always our lesson anyways. And so like I started off, I was taking a shower yesterday morning, and I was thinking to rise earlier, to make time to be grateful, because I find myself returning to gratitude naturally anyways. But I was having a really nice shower, and I was reflecting on my family and all that we've overcome and gone through and been able to enjoy and celebrate together over the past 3 years. And I was just feeling extremely grateful. And I was like, wow, this feeling imbues each moment if your head's pointed that way, if your perspective sees that that's what this, you may have a hardship in that moment that you need to shift your perspective to see that you have these joys and these celebrations that you can continue to carry forward. And so that was one thing. And then the second thing was to engage and employ your mind. And so make your mind your servant. It is a poor master, but it is a good servant. So do not let your mind be the thing that is controlling you, because our minds are fickle. Someone can flip you off. And if you have it programmed in your mind from witnessing your parent or a close family member or someone impactful in your life flip somebody off just because they flipped you off, then maybe that's a point of reference for you to be able to get in front of your mind to be like, hey, this isn't a behavior that I want to put out into the world. And fair warning, no one flipped me off today, so this isn't coming from a personal place. But I did find that I had lazy parts of my mind. Whenever I was showering, I was reflecting, and I was just thinking about, well, what am I going to do with this coming year? And then I was also thinking about, we're not even really at the end of the year, because intuitively the end of the year feels like the end of winter, not the end of December. December seems more arbitrary just for time, just for bookkeeping. That's it. It's just bookkeeping. But if you look at the natural world, it's not amenable to our inventions and our constructs around time. Nature already has its own time, but we're already going off of this overlay based on momentum, which is the Gregorian calendar. And there are different calendars. Whenever Elise and I lived in Nepal for about 4 months, they are 70 years in the future. Still living on dirt floors. Nothing wrong with dirt floors, but it's just funny to see that 12 hours of time zone difference. They're in what, we're 2022, they're in like 2090, they're like in 2096 right now or something like that. That's
Wow.
and they're going by their traditions, and we have picked up some traditions that we don't necessarily have to go by, but it's an awkward thing because you'd have to hold two tools in your mind, like the tool of your ancestry and then the tool of modernity, and there ends up becoming that internal conflict unless you just start looking back towards nature, because even our ancestral ones tend to be overly influenced by our own constructs. And so that's fine. I really recommend connecting more with the natural cycles and using that as your time gauge. Because if I'm outside working all day, I know what time it is. I'm going by the sun. I know where my energy level is. Both times that we've recorded our conversations, I was asking for it to be midday for Central Standard Time. That way, I know that I have my best ability to speak about concepts and to convey information amongst us.
Absolutely. I had a couple of thoughts as you were talking about all that. And something you brought up. Well, first I'll say, do you celebrate any sort of thing, maybe harvest or whatever, or winter solstice or anything like during this time of year? Do you celebrate anything like that?
I observe them, but I don't worship them.
Yeah.
So I don't put on a show. I would like to have, honestly, like our Christmas tree this year was a grapefruit tree. And luckily we didn't plant it or anything and get hit by frost. We just brought it inside, but that was our symbol of life that returns from this dormant state. Because I'm starting to see things more naturalistically as, okay, well, winter is a great metaphor for a restful period, and you bring an evergreen tree into your home to remember and not get despondent if you're under 3 feet of snow. Hey guys, everything's going to turn green again. I think that it's potent for your cultural heritage and rich traditions need to maintain themselves. It can't just get homogenized where everything becomes some corporate holiday and you get the bank and the post office and these places are closed because the government gave it to you. That's not it. We can reflect on the solstice. We can reflect on the times of harvest. And that varies based on your region and even based on microclimates in your region. So you may be someone that lives in a mountain and they'll be harvesting in the valley, but your harvest has to come a month sooner because the weather is going to turn sooner for you than it would for the people living in a valley. And so you would start to develop a different culture, even though you may live 20 miles or an hour's drive away from the people that live in a valley. And so we do pay homage to these traditions. And my family celebrates Christmas. My in-laws celebrate Christmas. But we don't want to start off lying to our children about Santa Claus. I would rather tell them that this is a great time of year, that whenever everything's dying and everything is receding back and resting, that we show that this realm is abundant by giving, instead of also trying to hoard and sit on wealth, that during the time of plenty, we made the most of it so that we this hoard that we built up, our canned goods, our creations, whatever it is, we can give them out. Like we don't see it as, oh, we only have X amount to make it through the winter and back into next summer. No. We have plenty. There is plenty here, but we have to do the good work to ensure that is so. And so we do celebrate, but there seems to be a difference in it, because I see just in the behavior that some folks in my family were exhibiting, that because we're kind of like pulling our children and like, hey, this isn't the way that we're going to celebrate, and we're letting them, bringing them up in our new tradition, which is an old tradition, to pay homage to nature. And we're pointing like, hey, it's not about a tree. It's about what created the tree. How did we all get here? We're not staying stuck on the creation, but we're marveling in the fact that it could exist at all. Because I'm not making an acorn anytime soon. I'm not making a tree, but I can observe it and I can witness it and I can sit in the awe and the majesty of that and look at both of my boys and be like, guys, this is magic. This is truth. There's nothing that you can't make an acorn be another tree, and you can't even make an acorn. And so after seeing how some folks in our family were just defaulting back to the commercialized holiday season, I can't support or say that I celebrate or endorse any of it. What I would rather say is that we are forging these new traditions with it's like we looked around we looked around in an old dilapidated house and we saw brass candlesticks, and so we grabbed those and we made some new candles to stick in them. We dusted the candlesticks off and we stuck a new candle on them, and we said, hey, thank you, God, for this candlestick. Thank you for the brass. Thank you for the air. Thank you for the candle. And it's just that simple. So when we started speaking, I started speaking about gratitude. It's just that simple to start there. The most potent prayer that we can give each day is thank you. It's just to be grateful, no matter our circumstance. And it's a hard place because I'll play the mind game with myself, like, well, what if your family has, what if you're destitute, your family has died, you're alone, and that's not what's happening. That is a mental fabrication. What is happening is what I can be grateful for. I don't have to play this mind game with myself to to psychologically whip myself into being grateful. I can just be grateful. I can be like, wow, I'm so grateful that I get to hug my boys. I'm so grateful that I get to hold my wife's hand, that we get to share a kiss, that I get to eat dinner with my family.
That's awesome. I love that. It's when you were talking about teaching kids certain things and teaching them gratitude and stuff like that. I remember when my nephews and nieces were small, and my sister and I would buy them gifts, and everybody would buy them gifts, and I started to notice that, as we did this, the pile of gifts would get larger and larger every year. And I would see them as they opened each gift. It was just like, when children are that small, they don't understand the power of gratitude, right? And they're just like, next, and they grab the gift, they rip it open and they look at it, and they're just like, if it's not something that they really, really wanted, they just throw it to the side. They're like, next, they grab the next one, they rip it open. And so I started to notice that. And I told my sister and my siblings, I was like, I can't see them. I can't do this anymore. Like that, it's a waste. Like they're completely ungrateful, and we're teaching them that. And I don't want to teach my nephews and nieces that. So we ended up changing things around to where it was like, okay, each adult would get a child, and then you could spend on a thoughtful gift for them, something that they wanted or something like that. And then their parents would get them something, right? But you didn't have like a myriad of aunts and uncles, like getting them a ton of things that they were just going to be ungrateful for, and they're just going to throw to the side and not care.
Yeah. And it's all a bunch of plastic garbage. Yeah. I started to think about this like 4 or 5 years ago. I was like, so industrial garbage that gets sent back to be recycled is coming back as these toys. Like that's the only way that it made sense for me to like really get a grip on this commercialized system where it's like, and somewhere along the line, the recycling company subsidized, like it's everybody's just hand over fist trading money to just get people's energy, their labor energy. Now you're going to go and labor all year for this plastic that already existed, and we beat you over the head to make you recycle it and give it away for nothing. even though you may have spent 40, 50, $60 on plastic. And then you give it back to us. And then we go and melt the crap back down. And then we give it to you back as some recycled garbage. And then we pat ourselves on the back. 70% post-consumer recycled. And so once you start to see like how ridiculous it all is, you end up having to change your behavior. And that's the hardest thing, is to change your behavior and to get out in front of your own mind each day, and to put yourself in service, firstly to yourself, because if you're not doing a good job for you, you're not gonna make anybody else's life better. And then to move into your family and your community. And my oldest is 3, and he was given a small pile, but a pile of gifts. And there was only most of them were practical, because we told them like, hey, he needs socks. He's growing super fast, and really cold feet blow. Like, nobody likes having cold feet, and just give him some really nice
darn
socks.
Tough socks. Okay.
Yeah, darn tough.
Your socks.
And so I
got some for Christmas.
They're good stuff. I've given one pair hell, and I need to re-up on some darn tough. Where's Green Thumb Bear?
I know. Get him.
and he got a bike, and he was uninterested in the bike, because partly he's a very observant child. He likes to understand something before he wants to engage. Like, he'll watch kids and decide whether he wants to be around them based on their behavior. And it's a trip.
Awesome.
And
that's
so
amazing.
He's been unsure about bikes ever since he's seen someone ride a bike, and he'll get on it whenever no one else is around, and he'll, feel it out. But he got a doctor's kit of just plastic, light up, press a button, lights, and maybe a sound. And like, this stuff's not going to last 3 months. I'm already throwing stuff away because he broke it. And I just turned to my wife, and I'm like, Elise, we can't keep this stuff. We already know that it's going to break, because we grew up with the same sort of materials, and we know that it's not going to last. And I get the older perspective that's like, but look at how much fun they're having. And it's like, yeah, I want them to have fun, but I don't want them to have dopamine hits that by the time they're 6 or 7, I can't really teach them a new skill. And I know that that's not going to happen in our particular case, or I'm trusting that that's not going to happen, at least. But for a vast majority of kids, they lose the ability to self-regulate and put off the satisfaction of meeting a goal. Press a button, lights and sounds. That's it. What do you mean that's it? So how do I make this fun for the next 3 months? Like, I know that you're going to get bored. I'm already bored with hearing the sounds. Like, it's been a week. And that's the sort of culture that we're in right now, that we can reestablish the traditions and what it means, and encourage people to give us meaningful gifts. It's so funny.
Yes.
Like, I'm the stickler, and I feel like I'm actually like the most laid back person in the family, but I'm a real stickler for diet. So we are extremely strict about eating. And it makes people in our family very uncomfortable, because my in-laws are really into barbecue. And so they do a great job. It's wonderful barbecue, but the ingredients are not the best ingredients. And so that follows throughout all of the holiday cooking. Like, holiday cooking is cooked with Crisco. I'm like, there's no way I'm letting my kids grow up eating this and telling me, you know what, I need another plate of that garbage. Like, no, guys, you can cook with lard and butter, stuff that's substantive and real.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was totally uninterested in the bike, which he will be more interested in year on year for the next, 6 or 7 years, until he outgrows the bike. And even when he's too big for the bike, I know he's going to try to ride it, because I did stuff like that as a kid. I would ride someone's bike that I was too big for, because it was a bike. But but we have to be able to show our children that we are critical of what's going on in this culture. You can't hide that from them and be like, well, I don't want to hurt your nana's feelings. Like, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but for some reason you're attached to the idea of materialism so much that I'm trying to ask for a particular material. Get him a knife that you would give to him whenever he's 7 or something. I don't know. I don't really have a great idea for gifts for 3 and under, but they don't need plastic. Clothes, seriously, clothes help parents out so much. Yeah. You'll have them in something 1 week, and then the next week they're too big for it. And so those sorts of gifts go a long way. And you can give that gift to your friend that has children. But just circling back, we don't want our children to be seeking gratification so much that they're just having an iPad put in front of them and they're 7 or younger, even older. I'm like, I had a laptop at like 15, and that was bad. I'm 30. That was 15 years ago. Now that laptops were great, it was great for me, but I had access to information that was unfathomable. And I literally I grew up in the internet. I saw how the internet became more restrictive in your ability to actually access information, and instead put you in cattle chutes to this is what you're looking for, right? Like, you used to be able to go on a quest when you access the internet, and it didn't have to be anything perverse. Like, you could just, for knowledge's sake, and you could go for hours and really wig yourself out and learn about flat earth. and now it's like I said, it's like a cattle chute. You're just straight to PubMed is in your top 5 searches whenever you're like, I have a rash. Like, can I just like put tea tree oil on it? Like, maybe don't do tea tree because it might dry my skin out. Okay. Like, is there an alternative? No, it's just like PubMed says, God, your cortisone free. And so we don't want that we want to teach our children how to use these tools, how to use these materials. As I mentioned last time, I'm learning how to weld. It's something that whenever I was a kid, I looked down on because that was what somebody else did. And I was going to go be a doctor. And, of course, somebody has to build the hospitals, but somebody's got to work in them. And that's going to be me. And thank God that's not how that worked out. Thank God I got humbled enough to not try to pursue that as a path in life. But so many people get caught up on the materialistic aspect that you get a good job, it means you get lots of money, you get good presents at Christmas. Some people have that myopic of a view of what they're doing here that they lose complete touch in context for their situation. And those sorts of people are the ones that are kind of getting poked in the eye with the Matrix series, because it's like, haha, you'll sit and watch this, but you're the battery for the whole system. And regardless, we are going to be that. And that's something that I had to humble myself with, is like, oh, dude, you're already in it. Like, you are a battery or a capacitor or something along the lines that can take a charge and can discharge it. But you're not a lump of lead inside of sulfuric acid. You're not a battery like that. No. You're here for a divine purpose. But if you don't put about yourself to discovering it, then someone is going to put it on you. And they're going to say, oh, no, don't even think about it. You know what you need? A 401k and a mortgage. Come over here. We got you.
Dude, I'm sorry. Let me just say this quick and then I'll let Brandon. I was just going to say, you said something about changing behavior and people not wanting to do it. And I noticed this as well in that same kind of scenario. When I noticed this about my nephews and nieces, I kind of got also to the point where I was just like, I don't want gifts because I don't want stuff. Like, I have a lot of stuff and I don't want to keep hoarding stuff. And so I started to try to say that to some of my siblings, and for some of them, it wasn't well received. Like, some of them got it, but some of them were like, no, I want to give you a gift. I want to get you something. And I'm just like, I love that you want that. And that's okay. But like, you know, maybe bring me food, like cook something. Like that's maybe like the whole, to me, it was like the whole idea of getting together for Christmas is like, or whatever event, Thanksgiving, Christmas, whatever. But like, it should be about family, about getting together. That's the gift to me. Like, I don't care that you brought me something you bought at the store. Like that doesn't matter to me. Like, I just appreciate your presence at the event.
Right.
And
like your presence is the present. Your presence is
oh my God. Yes. I love that.
But even like you mentioned something that's more meaningful is to cook me some food. But more, if you ask someone for that, they'd be like, okay, I'll get you. Yep. And they'll give you a gift card to Applebee's. Maybe not Applebee's. They may give you like the Cheesecake Bistro or something like that. But they would think, oh, of course, you got enough stuff. You said cook you something. I heard you want to eat good food. Oh, here you go. No, I wanted you to put your soul into something. Yeah. You put your soul in something and say, hey, look, on this day in April, come over to my house. This is your Christmas gift. I love you. Like, yeah, like
throughout the year, like we should, like, we can see each other and say, I see something and I'm like, oh, this is thoughtful. I thought of my sister, I'm going to get her this, or I just, you know what I mean? That's the thoughtfulness.
And it's funny because
like once a year thing.
Because like you're saying, okay, so I said that I'm kind of a stickler and I'm easy to get gifts for, which is I'm super pragmatic. So if you're someone that's noticing in my life, like, oh, look, he could probably use like some electrical tape. Seriously, I would be stoked. I'd be stoked to not have to make a quick run to buy electrical tape
or painter's tape.
Painter's tape. Hey, I use a lot of painter's tape. I use it as labeling.
It's expensive too. That crap is expensive.
Way too expensive for tape. But this year I got, like, I'm not kidding, 8 bars of soap, and I was stoked. Nice. I was like, yes, I'm not gonna have to buy soap, but now I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to tell my friend that makes soap that I have a lot of soap and I won't be buying soap from them for a little while. Yeah. But it's so funny. So like I got soap, socks, and slippers. I was like, yes, I'm on a slippery slide. Go take a good shower and get a nap, like, and have warm feet for the year. It's great.
Awesome.
But if we think of people's needs and not just even their desires, if their desire is building upon a dream or a skill or some ability that they're really trying to cultivate to make their life, their family's life, your life better, then get them that gift. Yeah, get them a chisel set or a pocket knife or a saw. I don't know, but you can take more time than just being advertised to go, oh, you know what they need? Bath bomb set. Here you go.
Yeah. Cody got me practical gifts this year. Well, he wanted to get me something practical, something I would need or use. And so he got me a couple of pairs of darn tough socks.
Oh, yes.
And some nice hiking boots and just stuff like that. That was like that I wanted, or that I would use, that I would need. Mm-hmm. So
nice. You can always also donate to Sharon's podcast if you don't know what to get her. You can just start telling people that. Just donate to the podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
In lieu of gift. I wanted to say this about gratefulness because I'm glad that you brought that up. I know we started talking about like reflecting on the year and stuff, but before we get a little more into that, I wanted to bring up the aspect of gratitude that I've been looking at lately. And that's when something bad happens to you, to still be grateful. Like I have a recent example where probably like a month or so ago, I was a little under the weather and I was thinking to myself, instead of being, oh, why am I sick or why is this happening? I was just like, you know what? Maybe this is happening for a reason. Thank you. You know, there's something here I can learn. Even it's just the fact that I have to be grateful for the bad things that happen, because, and I know it's not easy. Like we got to start out, I think, with gratitude by being grateful for the things you truly are grateful for and you really want and you're happy about. But then when something bad happens, like I got into a car accident in 2018, I got rear-ended. And as I was getting hit, I didn't even see it coming. It was my friend behind me. We were both leaving a wedding we were DJing. It was this really long road and it had the stop sign that came out of nowhere. So I stopped and then all of a sudden, boom, right? I just felt it and I realized what was happening. And in that moment, I kind of just accepted it. I wasn't grateful for it, but I think if I could have found the space to be grateful in that moment, I mean, I think that's really where the secret to all this comes in, because you kind of become invincible internally if you could just start learning to truly be grateful for even the bad things that happen to you, you know?
That's awesome. I was going to say, when you were talking about, James, also when you were talking about gratitude and saying thank you, it made me think of something I heard somewhere, and I don't remember where I heard it, but it was this concept of like, when do you say thank you to someone? It's when someone has done something for you or given you something, or it's already done, right? So if you say thank you about something that hasn't necessarily been done, it might have been Neville Goddard, but if you give thanks for something that's maybe not necessarily done yet, you're bringing it into manifestation because you're already being grateful for it being done. So I remembered that, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, it's like the magical aspect of so be it, and it is so.
Yes.
And that's sort of the biggest lesson about gratitude is you're not going to change getting rear-ended. You're not going to change any aspect of this world that we're witnessing. Like our reference is like right here for most folks. And so if you can just be grateful for what you're witnessing, that's a great spot. It can be hard though if you're witnessing a lot of pain and a lot of suffering. But for a lot of people that this podcast will reach, you're probably not witnessing, and I don't like playing the comparison game or anything, so I'll just preface it with that, but you're probably not witnessing as much pain and suffering as other folks in our realm are. And so to practice that gratitude, again, it might be a practice. Just like I'm not very good at sharpening knives. I can sharpen a knife to get a good edge on it, but I'm not like at that proficient, masterful level where I'm like, yeah, man, hand me your knife. I'll sharpen your knife real good. You won't have to sharpen it for 2 years. Like not even close. And speaking of being grateful, like about a month and a half ago, I almost chopped my finger off. I was they call hatchets finger choppers for a reason. And so I was splitting some kindling, and I don't know. My wife asked me what I was thinking. I was like, I don't know, but I stopped thinking about it. I whacked my finger and right on the joint, and I looked down, saw a flap, and I was just like, oh shit. Like just grabbed my finger, held it close, and then I just said, seeing that my finger was still attached, I just looked up and I was like, thank you. And like all of the endorphins and everything just started piling on top of me. But I was just grateful that I was here. I was like, oh shit. Oh, my finger. Hey, I got a finger. Well, got to go inside bleeding. But man, it's very hard in those dark moments in life to have gratitude, because again, it's kind of that game of comparisons, and you don't want to play the game of comparisons because you can't be like, oh, if it wasn't like this. It's like, if was a skip, we'd all go for a boat ride. If isn't what's happening. What is happening is that you are experiencing this pain. How are you grateful for that pain? How are you grateful? Like it seems to be a test of us to show strength in that we are here. Like the pain is part of being here. The losing a digit, that's part of being here. Maybe not everyone's story, but for a lot of laborers, yeah, it is. You lose the tip of your finger, you lose a whole, or you lose a whole finger, or I mean, crazy stuff happens to people that actually put themselves in this world and have to deal with natural law on that level, cause and effect. And so to practice before those moments occur in our life helps whenever that darkness dawns on our mind, because the world didn't get darker. It was just our mind. Our mind became darkened by circumstance. And we have to say, I accept the darkness just as much as I accept the light, because you're not getting one without the other. The creator didn't go, boo boo on the darkness and everything's great for the light. But the creator smiled on everything he created and said, it's good. So it's hard for us to reflect on that. And I definitely struggle with it. It's nothing that I am like, oh, fully liberated, don't even worry about it. No, it's something that I still have to work on. And I still find a lot of tendencies in myself where I'm like, dude, you are still a young man. You got a lot of humbling to come your way still. And part of it is when you're in those darkened parts of your mind, to shine the light. And that light is just thanks. Thanks for the darkness. Thanks for the light. Thanks for the sweet. Thanks for the sour. Let's have a little bit more bitterness in the tea instead of just trying to mask it with sugar.
Yeah. And you can't have what do they say about like light and dark? Like if you don't know the darkness, you can't appreciate the light, because if you haven't experienced that darkness, you can't just be grateful that you actually have light.
Yeah, it's ignorance. It's literally ignorance. You can be blinded by darkness as much as you can be blinded by light. There are plenty of people that are spiritual that are blinded by light. And there are plenty of people that are just dark people, materialistic, just going forward watching murder mysteries and all, I don't know, NCIS, just crap. Like you don't need to put it in your brain. Don't do that. That are just as ignorant as the people that think that they've had these great spiritual revelations and all they need to do is just drop acid one more time in a festival. Like it just doesn't make sense. And that's one of the greatest things about the bear community is people are just like calling bullshit and being able to redefine what a lot of people have just kind of been going with the motions with for the past several years. And it's like I really have no reference for how things were in the 90s or pre 9/11 because I got as MK Ultra psyoped with 9/11 as everyone else, because I had no, it's obviously the bad people. And you grow up at some point and you realize that the world isn't just good people and bad people. There is so much nuance, and you have to question your own morality to know how you would act, because that bears more on your life than some event on some mystical numbered day or anything like that. And so it's important for us to reflect on that whenever we're thinking about gratitude and darkness and light, is that we need to be secure in our own morality before we start going and judging what is light and dark. Because what could be dark is that we're actually on the other side. And so it's light on this side, but we're over here. I'm just seeing dark. And so how would you know? How would you know unless you started to go and investigate that? And part of that investigation is just through gratitude, because you can move through the light and the dark like there is no substance in there, like you're just walking through a room when you're walking through with gratitude. And if you bump your toe on something because the sun got in your eyes, or you bump your toe on something because, God damn it, where's the light switch? I can't see shit in here. You start to find these areas in your mind that you bump into, and you're like, that's my problem area. That's the area that needs my attention and my awareness the most. And don't shy away from it. Have the courage to go towards it.
Absolutely. We talk about that all the time on the show. Something you said early on in the discussion, we were talking about traditions and things like that. And it reminded me of stuff that Cody and I talk about sometimes about traditions. And I thought maybe I'd ask you what you thought, for example, what were traditions? What were they before organized religion? Like, what were our traditions as people, as beings? Before all these organized religions started telling us what things should be.
Yeah, I think that you could follow it back to a certain degree, but you're still, all of our thoughts or knowledge about it is overly influenced by the record keepers. Like who was the person that penned it to paper and said, these people are savages because they do these particular practices, or these people are great because they do these particular practices. I really don't know. I've come to that point in exploring history that I'm just questioning, and I don't really know. I don't have a good answer. Part of me feels that these religions had to conserve parts of these different traditions and belief systems, or else they wouldn't have won. One thing that I heard is that the Jews were uprising in Palestine the same time that that Rome was like trying to subjugate Gaul, and so they ended up having to call back several of their generals from Gaul to put down this uprising in Palestine, but they couldn't. And because they couldn't do it, that Rome had to merge with these different pagan religions because there was no other way. They weren't going to do it. It was till the last man. And I don't know if that's true. It definitely makes a lot of sense that, oh, this is how you got these different belief systems grafted on to religion as we see it today in the West, particularly. That seems to make more sense. Like you couldn't kill the Druids. Like this was a people that were in the trees. Like you weren't going to kill the Nords. These were the people that were going to come out of the mist and snow and kill, because that was part that, and not just kill, but that was part of it, is that if you were going to oppress, then we're going to bring it back to your doorstep. And these weren't the type of people that were, and especially old time Jews, if you read, they were very militaristic, and they were very much like, we're going to stamp our place in the dirt. And anyone that tries to overcome through force, subversion, or coercion, they either have force, they have to do away with it completely. Subversion and coercion, well, you have to allow some of it to survive, but you have to start to twist the story. And you're not going to be able to get all the great grandpas and grandmas and aunties and uncles to go on board with you switching the story. So it has to be incremental over time. And I think that even the people that get brainwashed into the belief system have no idea. I talk with, because I read esoteric texts, and Elise has asked me before, what do you think people think their degree is, like in like a Masonic sort of way? And I said, people are unaware of the degree in which they hold. And I don't mean that in the Masons, but I also do. But I mean that in the overall realm of the Creator, of God. Like, you don't know the degree in which you hold, that you were charged by the Creator to be his representative here. And if you're not owning up to that, then everything else is a falsehood, because you're not discharging your duty that has been placed upon you. And so I think that a lot of these religions or belief systems that weren't necessarily a religion, but may have been more of an act of devotion, that, hey, this was hard this year. See you next year. Let's keep it going. Because how the heck did anyone make it through without electricity, without running water? People are doing that to this day. And you go and look at it and you're like, shit, I think I'm going to go back to the West. Like, there are some people that go to India and they're like, oh, my people, or go to another country and they're like, I've made it home finally. But most people would go, oh crap, that is so hard. Like, my mom slipped up and said that we live off grid. I said, Mom, we don't live off grid. Like, we are on the grid. I do have solar panels and I haven't even put them up because batteries cost so much. But I was like, Mom, we're not off the grid. I don't even know how I would start to do that. I would have to have multiple redundancies in place. I don't have a wood boiler. I don't have, like, these are the things. I'm like, I am a baby. I'm a baby. I have no idea how I would take care of my family without the system, but I'm learning. I am putting myself to the fire. I'm tempering myself. Tapasya, straightening by fire, strengthening by fire. I'm having to test myself. I'm having to fail. I'm not a very good carpenter. So my wife's made the joke, oh, you think you're Jesus? And I was like, no, I don't. That guy was good at carpentry. Like, have you seen what I built for us? It's not even plumb true or square. Like I've built one building here, and it was our lab, and that thing is so out of whack. I see all the problems with it now, but while I was doing it, I was like, I just got to do it and nail it. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, I could have done that better. But I've never had the skills taught to me. And these are the things that I want to teach my children. And I want my children to go and learn is that do not get caught up in the trap of modernity that promises you the wielding of electricity to be able to overcome all of your obstacles. We had a hurricane here last September, and we were out of power for 2 weeks, and people were getting shot in New Orleans over fuel, just for gas for their generator. And I cannot fathom why that crosses someone's mind as this is survival. This is survival. But I can put myself in that person's shoes, because I know how limited I feel whenever I look around and I'm like, shit, it's going to be. So it was, we were in the 20s here for several days, and it was very cold. And I was thinking about Texas a couple of years ago, or maybe it was last year. They lost power in, I think, like Dallas Fort Worth area, and a bunch of people froze. They had pipes in their house break because they couldn't heat their home, and ruin their house. Some people froze to death in a place where we don't get truly frigid temperatures, but we'll get it in the 40s. People still die of exposure in the 40s. Like, you're not even in water freezing yet. It's just you're cold and you can't get warm. And so we went and bought a kerosene heater right before all of the cold weather set in here, and we ended up losing power for just a couple of hours. But man, oh man, was it nice to have that backup fossil fuel heater. And I could flick on a light switch and nothing happened, but I had a fire inside that was safe, that was providing heat for my family. And and I think that we've all been conditioned away from how things are truly. And I think Owen was saying this in his one of his recent streams, was like, wood heat warms you 4 times. When you chop it, when you cut it down, when you split it, when you stack it, and then when you burn it. And it's like that is Zen. That's wisdom right there for the ages. And we've gotten away from the wisdom of the ages for this new promised light. And it's blinding plenty of folks. Lucifer, the light bringer, is blinding plenty of people. And that is not to say, oh, we don't need electricity. No. We need to fully understand how our relationship with these energy systems. Because if we don't, then you're just someone that's like, all right, give me a 401k and a mortgage and let's go to town. Spin me around again. Like that's where a lot of people are. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that my life is as hard as it is. Some days I'm bitter at myself for not teaching myself more or wanting to learn more whenever I was younger, or that I was too lazy. I wanted to learn more than a lot of people around me, but that's not saying much. Like that's a poor standard to measure myself by. And so I'm looking at raising my boys and being able to show them things that I wasn't shown. How to wire a light switch, how to wire 220. Like I can run electricity for this entire building straight off of a service line. And if I needed to, given the materials, I could do so from solar. I have that knowledge. And that's something that I didn't have 3 years ago. And so whenever I started our conversation, I said, I'm reflecting over these past 3 years. Like I'm still having to be faced with my current adversary. And I'm grateful for my adversary, because if I wasn't grateful for my adversary, then I'd be getting pushback and I wouldn't even know that I'm backsliding. So I'm grateful that I have something to press up against, but I do take time to reflect and to see if where I'm pushing forward and pushing ahead, is that where I'm called? Is that where I'm hearing my calling? And I'm reflecting back to be grateful on what I've accomplished over the past few years, over my entire life. You don't have to get super far out. You can just look at the past 3 months and be like, man, I'm crushing it. You know, if you're someone that has dealt with addiction or dealt with some sort of trial or tribulation, and now you're starting to feel like you're seeing the light, bask in it, and keep going. Keep employ your mind. Make your mind your employee, your servant, the thing that is serving you, so that you can go to a higher ideal, and choose that ideal. Because if you don't, you'll get one that gets dangled in front of you, and they're like, "Hey, you like Jordan Peterson?" Or, I mean, we either start to look through these different wisdom traditions to find a way to embody the wisdom ourselves, or we get gatekept by someone, and they're like, and this is the guy that is the speaker for Western society. It's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. You can give them a platform with 10 million people, and they're still not.
Absolutely. Well, we started this conversation before we went live, not live, sorry, before we hit the record button, talking about the time of the year, and when, like right now, based on the Western calendaring system, you know, we're at the quote end of the year, but you were saying that, you know, you had some thoughts on the kind of a truer calendaring format.
Yeah.
So thoughts with us.
So I look at it a couple of ways. I'm still trying to feel the most intuitive way about it, because I don't think that you can prove it out for people. I think that you kind of have to feel this one. And I know it can sound super woo-woo, but it's not the end of the year just because it's the end of December. I feel like it makes more sense that it's either the solstice or the equinox. The vernal equinox, the spring equinox is the beginning of the year, because it's about the end of around about the end of winter. But the lowest point of the sun kind of seems to me like the most obvious end of the year. And then 3 days of reflection, 3 days of being in the tomb, 3 days of darkness where you're like, was I a piece of shit to my neighbor? Maybe I should go make amends before, you know, it just spirals for no reason. That sounds a little bit more realistic than because I said so. Because it's January. Well, of course it's 2023. It's January. It's like that isn't substantive. What is substantive is the sun is at a higher point now, and we're seeing growth return. Wow, the vernal equinox. The day and the night have equilibrated again, and here we are. Or the sun is at its lowest point, and it is not going to increase a degree in the sky for a few days, and then it will. Those two seem like more logical points to reference time than because I said so. Because I said so isn't working for a lot of folks, and it's going to make a lot of people spiral, because a lot of people are going to cling to a false tradition, and they're going to try to sink their teeth into it, and it's going to be air. And they're going to be like, "Oh shit. Like this didn't have anything." And what are we to do except start transitioning away from that now, and start embodying a new tradition now. And that new tradition isn't new. It's the same one. It's the one that people always default to. They go, why are we here? What are we doing? You know, these are simple questions.
Sky clock.
You look up. If the power is out, what do people do? And it's nice weather. If the power is out and it's nice weather, people go outside and they look up.
Yeah, I was actually saying that recently. I have a joke going with my new woman that I've been seeing recently, and it's about because I have a Van Gogh cover of Starry Night on my laptop, and when I DJ, and I was at a wedding, and somebody was live streaming the ceremony, and they had an iPad with a Starry Night, so it was one of the groomsmen. So I was talking to him about it, and he said that there's an exhibition. He's like, yeah, you can go down somewhere in Hartford up in Connecticut, and It's an immersive experience. You get to see all of Van Gogh's stuff. And I've heard like 2 or 3 people tell me about it after that. So I was interested in going. We were both interested in going. And then we found out it had already passed. And a night or that night or the next night, we're out hiking in the woods at night. And I was looking at the stars and I'm like, you know what? Fuck Van Gogh. I'm like, look at this. Like, yeah, that's a beautiful painting, but look at the reality of it. And I go, you know, he probably wouldn't even be mad. I'm like, that's probably why he was painting it. He's like, go outside and look up. It's amazing out there, you know? So, yeah, it's something I do now. We do all the time. Every time we're out in the woods at night and it's really beautiful, I'm like, fuck Van Gogh.
Totally. Because he was just trying to give us, to get across an impression. That's it. And any artist knows that they're never going to fully embody and encapsulate in their work the trueness of this reality. They're just trying to put their perspective of truth and embody that. That way they can say, this is as close as I could do, as I could explain it. I couldn't use words, so I used color. I used color and shape and form, and I painted it. But this is how true everything felt whenever I was here. And I think that really, really brilliant creators, really brilliant thinkers understand that they're just picking up where someone else left off. So we joke about our homestead. We call it the outpost because we're on the tip of the spear. And anyone can join us at the outpost. The outpost isn't a physical location. It's more like a place in our hearts and our minds and our spirit that is allowing ourselves to bask in the unknown. We're at the outpost. What's out there? I don't know. You can go, or you can stay here at the outpost and you can look out, or you can go and you can come back if you need if you need to freshen your reserves. But to those that venture into the unknown, Godspeed. God gave you the ability. Maybe you go and you make another outpost. The unknown becomes known again. I don't know. And that's the beauty of it, is that at some point you get to that humility and that humbleness where you're just looking at the immensity of it and you're just going, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing here. I can look at the pieces and parts and be like, these people are playing the commerce game. Sometimes I'll play the commerce game. These people over here, they're playing social backbiting, and I don't really like social backbiting, so I don't play that game. Like, you know, you can look at all of that mess, or you can just kind of take it in as that's a pattern. Backbiting, that's just a pattern. That looks like some blues and yellows and stuff starts to swirl together, and then, oh, what's over here? Commerce? Wow, that looks kind of chaotic. It looks like they keep changing the rules. It looks like zigzag, zigzag. But we can start to take that part of existence a little less seriously. And it's very hard to say that whenever it's like, oh, but we're all exchanging money as the medium of energy equivalencies. And until we find a better, acceptable, agreed upon way to exchange energy equivalently, we're going to continue seeing the subjugation of the mind and of man to mammon, to materialism, to this false state of being. But you can inwardly liberate yourself. It is most important to do that, because none of this world can ever touch what is inside of us, what the Creator has put inside of us that is eternal. And God bless you when you find that. It either happens while you're here or it happens upon your death. And thank God for it, because you can find that eternal life. And I think that some people, and this is where hell and these ideas come up, is that they have created such a hellish landscape in their mind that if when you die, you are left with the mind that you have made, then and you have made hell of your mind, then you have left yourself with hell. And that, to me, feels a little bit more intuitively true than you go to another place. I don't think you go to another place. I think you go to the place just how you made it. And you got to sit with what you made.
Yeah.
I concur.
I really like that. Definitely. Oh yeah, and I was gonna say is the material is, that's another thing. You don't really even have to, not that I'm not saying you're doing it, but some people will just rage against materialism and stuff. But you can look at it as for what it is. It's a tool. The material world is really just here for us to learn from. You could go out in the world and just go crazy, go ham, and try all these different experiences, drugs, women, men, fast cars. And then you could just realize, and drinking, obviously, and then once you have enough of it, then that's when when you have that inner knowing that that's not what you want anymore. You want to turn it around. And I totally agree with what you said, that you basically are making the bed that you're going to lie in when you exit this body, right?
Totally, yeah. Totally. And I think that it's important to reflect that we have no knowledge of anywhere else. Anyone that's ever been like, oh, I remember my past life. It's like, okay, cool. Where were you? And it's like, oh, well, I was here. It's like, oh, you're fucking right here. Like, there's nowhere else to go. Yeah. Nowhere else to go. Oh, holy shit. Like, anyone that's ever been has been here. So if you're going to be, here's the place.
That's hilarious. We were just talking about past lives.
Yeah, I like to poke fun at it, because I'm like, at some point it seems like you're abstracting yourself away from the responsibility of living this life fully. And whenever people are like, maybe in another time, maybe in a past life, I'm like, what about this one? What are you doing? What are you talking about? Like, I understand. I feel that too. I understand what wonderment is, but I also understand that can be a bit of a psychological loophole for you to allow yourself out of responsibility. And, maybe there are past lives. I've thought maybe we are the current past life. Like, I am someone else's past life, but I'm living it presently. And someone else is my past life, living it presently. Because that makes just as much damn sense as I remembered whenever I was Celtic. Like, really? Okay, well, where were you? Well, I was in Ireland, but you were here? Yeah. Okay.
In this realm.
In this realm. This is the only place that we can have experience. And right. I'm not going to say what happens after this you don't have experience of either. I'm just saying we're on the tip of the spear. This is as aware as you've ever been in your life. This is the supreme awareness. There is no going backwards. There is only increasing awareness. And so there's no other place to be. This is the only place to experience. This is the only place, the only locale of your awareness is here now.
Living the present moment. Yeah.
And sometimes it's chopping off a finger. Sometimes it's getting rear-ended by your best buddy. But exactly. Hey, we were leaving a concert.
No, but we were leaving a wedding that we just DJ'd. We were both working, so I know he wasn't drunk.
You don't think he was?
he might have been a little high, but he was young. I think he was just flying down the street, not paying attention.
No stop signs, man.
It happens.
It does.
They jump out. They come out of nowhere.
I had my friend rear end me in our driveway in the duplex that we both lived at, and I'm like, dude, no big deal, but man,
yeah.
But yeah, we use the material realm as a place to expand our awareness if we choose to do so. Some people just get into the drugs of experience, and sometimes the drugs of experiences give me another bar of chocolate. Like, I'm going to eat a whole pack of Skittles. Like, dude, no, no. But whenever you're out of your family's care, and it's now on you, it's no one else's fault that you keep eating Skittles because you like the feeling, because you like the drugs that Skittles is. And that's where I've seen like our Western culture become so posh, is people are like, oh yeah, that fat's beautiful. It's like, is it? I'm not gonna call people ugly, but I am gonna talk about that's being unhealthy. Like, you are doing something to yourself to make yourself that way, and you understand that it has some sort of effect on you psychologically and physiologically. And so if we're going from that standpoint, is it a pattern that we could do today, tomorrow, next week, for the rest of our lives? And if everyone did it, would it make the place better or worse? And a lot of times it's way too big of a thought experiment for someone to do, for them to start changing their life. So I boil it down and just be grateful, man. Like, just be grateful. Be grateful that you have that food. A lot of people are in famine-like conditions and they don't even know it. They eat rice and beans. They got a full belly, but they have like no nutrition. And I always joke that rice and beans is a famine diet, because I truly believe that we're supposed to be in partnership with animals in the land, and that people have been, completely controlled, and you keep their bellies full, then they're not going to protest and they're not going to complain that much. And then, you do that over 3 generations and everyone's IQ kind of starts to drop. And nobody really knows why or pays attention, but it's the famine diet. Like peanuts probably shouldn't be eating peanuts. They're like, oh, you should make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Don't do that. And I grew up eating that. I was poor. And so I come out of it and I'm like, whoa, what the fuck?
Yeah, definitely. There's awareness once you, I totally get that. Something else that you said, I was thinking about this because I've heard, how people are like, oh, well, if I had $1 million, I would like help these children, or I would do this, or I would give people money to do this, and it's like some people think that like you need money to live because they propagate that statement. And yes, like you said, we're in this place, in this realm where we are using that as a form of exchange of energy, right? But I think sometimes people take that to the extreme to say like people actually need that, in the sense of like, but if you give somebody too much of something, or you overdo it, like some people don't really even need it to come to a realization of who they are in this realm and to awaken. And you know what I'm saying? So, could it be that the people who are in an impoverished state are going through it for a reason, to wake up, to see where they're at, to see what they're doing,
right.
And like you giving them handouts and money is not necessarily going to help them. You know what I mean?
And they may not have that desire at all anyways. Like the person from the outside looking at the poor person's situation, you'd be like, oh, what a shame. It would be so much better if they had an electric stove. And they're like,
right.
I like fire. Like I can go chop wood. No one's going to tell me anything. Sometimes while I'm chopping wood, I see a deer, a couple squirrels. It's really beautiful. But you can't say that to someone that's like, no. You don't understand. You haven't had an induction cooktop. That's the way that you cook in the future. Over here. And it's putting
that's the way you cook in space.
Yeah. Space. And that's the sort of egotistical mind that I found within myself. And I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, I think that I can make the world better. I'm a baby. I still have a ton to learn. And money's never going to fix anyone's problems. Money is just energy. And if they don't have the gumption in themselves, then it doesn't matter a single iota what you give them. It will be squalor in moments. And it may happen right before your very eyes, or it may take 5 years, but you will watch someone just absolutely forego a gift. And that's the parable of the golden talents in the Bible. Is you were to him that have much,
I will give more.
I will give more, because you're going to do a lot with it. Yeah. And even if you're thinking about yourself, that's okay. We're in this weird area where it's like, just because you think of yourself, it means that you're egotistical and you don't think of other people. And that's not necessarily true. It does happen a lot that is the case, because people are putting a value on money that is more so than the value of life, or more so than the value of quality of life, or something along those lines. And so whenever we're given whatever gifts we're given, it's best to just go ahead and explore them until you're exhausted, because you're gonna be here till you're not. Like, people will ask me how my day's going, and I'm like, yeah, it's good. And they're like, oh, yeah, you know. And it's like, oh, you wanted me to ask you how your day's going. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But your day's going great from my perspective, because you couldn't have a day without being you. And so start there. And like you said, giving people anything, any sort of energy that they are not responsible. They don't have the ability to respond to more energy, the responsibility. You put more energy in their environment, you could just as easily short circuit them. They'll spurg out. And it's like
Exactly.
you see this in chat rooms where people feel, because they have the ability to say something that they should, because it came to their mind and they need to say it. And that's not true. So a lot of those people need to learn how to recycle that energy and put it back into the fire and burn it up, because it's coming out awfully to other people that are reading it. Like, you know, you could use an induction cooktop instead of that fucking fire. It's like, no, dude, the fire has fed his family for 40 years. Like, your induction cooktop just came out, a decade ago, maybe more, and you think that that's better? And like, I understand the principle that induction works upon, and I think it's fantastically magical. But this guy doesn't need anyone to proselytize an improvement of his life. If he feels like his life needs to be improved, he's going to do so.
Yeah.
And that's anyone. And I have a personal investment in this, because in this sort of dialogue, because my mom lives in a house that is dilapidated and falling in on her, and there's nothing that I can do to move her from that place, except now she's almost screaming back to me from the abyss. Why? Whenever I was 21, I wanted to do a lease to purchase house while in this house that I was renting, and they were like, "Hey, look, if you stay and sign a contract, lease to own, we'll go," because they were trying to get rid of the property, and it was by the college that I was attending, and I was like, "Mom, look, you wouldn't really have to do anything. She's on Social Security, the whole gambit." And I was like, "You're really not going to have to do anything." I had a good job at the time, checking all the boxes. I was like, "Mom, just move. And she didn't want to. She wanted to live there, because there was home. And what we're teaching our family is that home is wherever we are together. It's in your heart, because that's where mama and papa are, is in your heart. But wherever we are all together, we're already home. We could come to this place, this building, and it'd be burnt to the ground. And if everyone's here, we're golden. We're golden. And because I don't like to harp on like coming from not a lot of financial means, because I don't really care. I look at it as a reflection. But I'm like, I've already started from nothing. I can go back to nothing, and I can keep going. And a lot of people don't have that mindset that they can keep going, even if you're already at the. And sometimes maybe that is the wrong perspective for some people, is to just keep going. Like, sometimes people need to temper themselves back a little bit. But for a lot of people, it seems that their energy has been spread out into too many things, and it needs to be pulled back in and reflected on to be redirected towards something that's true, that doesn't just waste their attention, that doesn't just waste their time and their energy. And that's truly the only way that anyone makes it through any depression, any recession, any period where money really doesn't have a value, is that you find the value in yourself and your family, in your neighbors, in your community. And I think that that's the most valuable thing to do anyways, because if you have 5 people that you can call to give you a hand on the weekend, and all that you do is give them a beer or give them a burger that you cooked, I don't know, whatever, but you did some sort of energy exchange with them where it was like, thank you so much for doing this, then that's the highest prayer for the day. Thank you. They gave you their time because of your community attributes, what you do for your community, and not to get a pat on the back or anything. Or they saw that you were in need and they weren't like, we just need to give them something that they don't need. Here's a bath bomb kit. Hey, instead you gave them a hand. Do you need a hand cleaning up your yard? Let's do that. Let's do that for 2 hours on Saturday. I got 2 hours for you. What can we do with that?
That's way more appreciated.
Totally.
Yeah. Something you said about like people who don't, I forgot what you said, but I just thought of the people who like win the lottery or whatever, and then they squander it. It's like they didn't need it, clearly, because they didn't even know how to use it. Like the energy that they got from it just dissipated because they didn't know how to use it.
Which I think that's kind of bet on, as it's like built into the lottery. Yeah. Is that you could give these people $1 million, and again, it kind of comes at like a poke in the eye, like, haha, you could have it all, and you still would F it up. And and that's not everyone. It isn't everyone, but it's so much the vast majority because of how programmed people's lines of thinking are, that they think that, well, now I got the money, now I got the security, now I can get stuff. Oh, I can get the stuff. And it's like, dude, you didn't set up a trust for your family with that? Are you kidding? You didn't take $50K out as that's for you, and then the rest is for your family, and you start putting it to work? No. And that's the thing that people, it's partly that we don't have the access to the information. The thought doesn't even get introduced to us, what a trust is, what a financial vehicle is, what a business is, so that we don't even care. We think that employment is if you won the lottery and in 5 years you didn't have the money, you just go back and get a job. Why? That doesn't make any sense. Employment is not the highest occupation. The highest occupation is time well spent. And that doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're being employed, or if you're working on your craft, or if you're setting up a trust. Like, there are so many more valuable things to do that are non-monetary. But absolutely, given the circumstances, a lot of people do not know how to operate with more energy than what they have, which I think is why God gives you what you've got. Is that, okay, before you can graduate, you got to show that you're going to use this well.
Absolutely.
And personally, I feel like that's been my lesson over these past 3 years, is that I haven't been handed anything, but I haven't had to have a chunk of flesh taken off, if you can catch my drift. Like, I pay my father-in-law for this place, but I didn't have to secure an unsecured debt. I didn't have to go and get a mortgage to get this place, but I have to pay him. And that's a damn good agreement in my mind. And, but I have to provide every day, every week. I have to show up for my family, for my community, because ultimately what I do, I don't just sell to my family. I have to provide something valuable for my community, locally, internetically. I don't know, across the realm. And so I feel extremely blessed and privileged with what I've been given the opportunity to use, but I have to prove it. And that's where I'm at, is I'm in the prove it stage. All right, here you go, prove it. And I'm like, in the captain's chair, kind of shitting sometimes, but still being judicious. And that's where we have to show up and say, God, you gave me one gold talent. Thank you. Thank you. Here's your gold talent. I made 5 with it. And he's like, cool, keep the 5. Thanks for giving me back the 1.
I'll give you more.
I'll give you more. And this is the whole thing, is that our lives are like a beautiful masterpiece that we get to paint and act out and have all of this depth imbued into it by our beingness and our character, how we act amongst ourselves and with one another, that we should be excited to die, to be like, God, I'm running back as fast as I can to go, I painted this. This is it right here. That's me. I did that. You gave me
on your fridge.
Put it on your fridge. Like, I did it. I lived. And I think that's the sort of mindset that we have to have. That way we're not kicking ourselves in the ass so much or denigrating ourselves or others. And sometimes denigrating others isn't super harsh. It's just, man, they're not living up to their potential. And it's not necessarily like you're going to go try to prove something out to them, but more so that you know through seeing yourself overcome that they can as well. And like I said, I think that that's the greatest thing. The like long-term view is try to live your life in such a way that you would give it back to God, and you'd be like, you like it? That's me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Very wise words. Love it.
Yeah. I've enjoyed this discussion.
Yeah, this is great. Was there anything else, Sharon, that you had that you wanted to ask?
No, I think that was
awesome. Well, speaking of gratitude, I'd like to say how grateful I am for our chat and the people who are in our chat right now when we premiere this. So thank you guys so much for coming and hanging out. Thank you for everybody who supports us. You can go to morelawsmoreproblems.com to find all your oversharing needs. But just comment is the best. And James, where can people find you and your lovely products? And also, so people know, we did another recording with James not too long ago, and we talked about all his lovely products and everything that he offers. So you can go back and check that out. But go ahead, James.
Yeah. So you can find us at familyfungi.net. That's our website. That's our outpost, our castle gates, our castle walls. You can also find us at Family Fungi on Instagram. I just don't really know about Instagram anymore. I try to interface as much as I can. Like, I just share things and drop it, walk away. And I'll talk to some people on there, like Kyle, Herbalist Bear from Tippecanoe Herbs. I don't know if you guys have had a conversation with him yet.
We haven't. I've been trying to get a hold of him. He's very busy. So
he is definitely just so much wisdom. Speak with him when you can. And I speak with him and with Grounded Extracts on Instagram, and a few other people that are worthy to interact with. But otherwise, like I just get like bot accounts kind of taking up attention, and I'm like, do I just keep blocking this stuff, or do I just like walk away from this dumpster fire? Like I'm trying. I want to drive people to our website because that really embodies more of our philosophy there, because I can write out a lengthy blog and inform people about something, but also try to elevate it to not just be mechanistic and like, oh, you should take this because of cancer, but more like, no, like your whole life has to be about living in a healthy way. Your health is true wealth. Like, family is wealth, health is wealth, and community is wealth. And finding those things out sooner than later is best. And so you can find us at familyfungi.net. You can find us on Facebook at Family Fungi and on Instagram at Family Fungi. Or you can email us familyfungimush, MUSH at gmail.com. You can also email us through our website.
All right. Awesome. Perfect. All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much again, one more time. And what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
That if you're not oversharing,
then you're totally being a Karen. So overshare, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week. See you later.
Bye.